Hey, John Mayfield with Global Real Estate School and Easy Sales Meetings. And I'm so excited today to have Tez Roro with me, who was one of my CRB students in the recent course I did virtually for Hawaii. Tez, thank you for joining.
Yes, thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, so I want our audience to know when we were, first of all, as an instructor, it's so great to have students like Tez and really the entire class who have knowledge and wisdom and can bring such great depth to the subject matter. And Tez just was for an instructor, a joy to have, especially in a virtual class. She had great questions and just great feedback when we went through the course. So I appreciated that. But one thing caught my interest was her ability and the way she uses LinkedIn to grow her real estate business. And I'm like, oh man, I've got to have Tez on my podcast. So that's what we want to talk about. But first, Tez, tell everybody a little bit about yourself and what brought you to real estate.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, John. So, Tez Roro. So, my name is actually pronounced Tezeta. I was born and raised in Ethiopia. So, people can say that. I love it. Otherwise, Tez works. So, I was actually in the corporate world prior to real estate, right? So, I've had my MBA and 12-year corporate career, and then pivoted into real estate about 2015. And for me, it was a combination of being a parent and the corporate world not really being made for working parents. And in 2014, we bought a home. And so the experience was quite interesting. I don't think I had the greatest representation or experience. And so when you put those two things together, of the seed have already been planted in my head of I think I need to do something different than corporate. Plus, I went through that experience. I was like, light bulb moment, right? And so I closed in June. And August, I was in pre-licensing course. So that's my story. And so I've always been active on LinkedIn, even prior to real estate. Before I was, I had a business Facebook group page or Instagram. And so that's a little bit about myself and sort of for context for this conversation.
Great. Excellent. And so keeping with LinkedIn, because I think a lot of real estate agents have a LinkedIn profile, brokers as well,
Mhm.
but they don't understand. Maybe it's not that they don't understand, but they're failing to utilize LinkedIn correctly to generate potential leads and prospects. And I say that because I'm also a member of the National Speakers Association. A lot of those speakers only hang out on LinkedIn. I mean, they still have Facebook and Instagram. But they pretty much say, this is where you can reach me. And just hearing some of them talk, there are different ways you have to approach LinkedIn versus a typical social media like Facebook. Tell us a little bit about how you approach LinkedIn or what's your strategy or how has it been successful?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. And so I think LinkedIn, for people who may or may not have a platform, can be intimidating, right? And so
Mhm.
it is a professional platform. So just by the fact that it's professional, I think it perhaps limits or maybe puts question in people's minds of what type of content is acceptable or appreciated, or how can I authentically show up there. Even when I was in the corporate world, so I was a dual career agent for about 2.5 years. I didn't necessarily speak out about my real estate career until after I left. At that time, for me, it made sense because I did not want my corporate career to be questioned or my commitment to be questioned, right? So, and you made a great point about speakers, and a lot of decision makers are on LinkedIn. And so they're not, if you go to a professional um, meeting of some sort, a lot of the times they're not going to say, here's my IG or here's my Facebook, right? They're
Right.
going to say,
Yeah.
here's my LinkedIn, because it's professional. It's also safe. So I use it a lot when I meet people. And if they don't have a card, just to be respectful of relationships, I say, here's my LinkedIn. And that's a safe bet from that perspective as well, right? So the way I use it is on any platform, show up authentically. So I think the work is really, what does that mean and how can I or anybody else show up authentically? And for
Mhm.
me, it means finding out the issues that I'm passionate about outside of real estate. So I think the other challenge for real estate professionals is, whether it's LinkedIn or another platform, is how do we show up without being salesy all the time? Just listen,
Right.
just listen, just like, how can we provide value, right? So my suggestion is until you're comfortable creating your own content to kind of finding your own lane and being comfortable, you can share industry information from NAR, from your state association, from your local association, any real estate related changes or articles that come up. But I say only share it with your opinion. Don't do like a lazy share with no context or no engaging question and things like that. So that could be a good way to engage. I also would challenge folks to have a goal of maybe spending at least 30 minutes a day. Download the app. We're on our phones a lot. So if you download the app, you'll kind of remember to go to it.
Right. Yeah, I think that's a
Um,
great point.
yeah, spend at least 30 minutes a day adding 10 quality connections and update your profile. When you update your profile and you add, perhaps this is a second career for me. So when people add other companies they worked at or colleges they went to or organizations they volunteer, it's just like any other algorithm. The platform starts to suggest people to you and helps you reconnect with people that already know, like, and trust you. So those are some tips I would provide.
Yeah, I love that. Three things that I wanna I wanna unpack here. Number one, update your profile. I think that's a just a super piece of advice. A lot of people don't take the time, and when you said that, I thought, gosh, I need to go out and make sure anything new and relevant is updated. But two other items I wanted to touch on. First, you said in class, and I still remember this, even though people may not post a reply, they're listening, they're reading and listening, they're paying attention. And so when you said that in class, it reminded me of how often I love to go to LinkedIn and Twitter for two things to
Mhm.
see what if there's anything valuable that I can get to enhance my career or my knowledge. Twitter used to be really good for that, or X, whatever. It's kind of really gone off the rails a little
Yeah.
bit, but there used to be some valuable content that was shared there, and still a little bit. But LinkedIn, I find myself like finding these cool articles that, and as you said, that was the second point, sharing some of those because I'll see some type of statistic
Yeah.
or an article that's an impact for me in my career.
Yeah.
So talk a little bit about the listening part and how that's helped you as well.
That's a great observation you make. And so I say that LinkedIn has a very interesting psychology, right? The human psychology on LinkedIn is very interesting. And I understand it and I can explain it. And so again, most people, I mean, there are those, who are business owners or professionals, but for the most part, it's working employees, professionals that work for a company. So what that means is while there is an interest and incentive to be active and to network, they're also very measured and careful in what they post and what they comment, because guess what? Their colleagues and their bosses are also watching, right? And so
Right.
everything is measured. So for that reason, I found that um, a lot of people who have messaged me to ask me to represent them, I honestly forgot that I was connected to them, right? Why?
Right.
Because they don't post, they don't interact with my posts, with my comments, but they are watching. And because they've been watching, they've already bought into the idea of working with me. And so it's not a matter of, I'm interviewing a few agents or I want to see if it's a
Right.
fit. They've been watching me for years and they've already decided to work with me. And honestly, if I show you some of the DMs, it's like, would you be interested in selling this home or would you please represent me? It's more of they already see the value, right? And it's
Right.
an easy sell. So I want to share with you something someone said to me, and I think it's really going to hit home for you. I have monthly newsletters that I email, right? And I have a friend I connected with. I'm pretty good about, like, when I think of someone, I just send them a text message or I just call them right away just to let them know, right? So I did
Right.
one of those texts. And then I said, you know what, let me just call her. And she said, Tez, I see your newsletters and they're great information. I said, girl, so why don't you reply back and let me know that you find them valuable? Like, that means so much to me. And she said, you know what? You're right. I should. She's a detective, John. You know what she said to me? It's kind of like a hostage situation. And a hostage situation, you keep talking whether the person is responding back or not, because guess what? They're still listening. That was
Interesting.
such a powerful moment for
That
me.
is.
Like, even though people are not responding, they're seeing your value. And so
Right.
that is the psychology on LinkedIn that I've experienced is people are very careful in how they show up and what they interact with, but they are watching.
Very, very fascinating. I love that. So I guess we need to be strategic about what we're going to post on LinkedIn. The the item, and I've probably been guilty of this, and I have to think about this moving forward. The item that you may post on Facebook might not also be a great post on LinkedIn. And
Um,
vice versa, maybe
mhm.
something you do on LinkedIn may not perform as well on Facebook. It's not that they wouldn't be useful, but I think what I'm hearing and what I'm seeing, and you tell me if this is right or not, is the people on LinkedIn are probably more interested in the mechanics of business and what's happening behind the scenes. They're more interested in the than trying to think of I always get these mixed up as far as high drivers or, but they're more interested in the details,
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
think.
and so if you see me look this way, I'm actually launching my LinkedIn, so I can like tell you live some of the content that I post. And I don't know if there's an option to share, but I'm more than happy to share my page. So
And
some of
I guess what not to interrupt you, but what I'm saying is, would you think that people who are more into the details are also the same ones who are spending more time on LinkedIn? I guess
I
I
think
think details, is that a high I?
sorry, this LinkedIn video. Yes, but the details, I would say storytelling.
Okay,
Storytelling has become powerful, and any platform, particularly LinkedIn. And I think COVID, something that we've learned through COVID is LinkedIn used to be a much more stuffy, like show up in your tux and shirt
okay,
type of space. And now, if you notice, even the headshots have changed into more of a lifestyle shot. It's not your typical shirt and serious
okay,
space. So storytelling has become powerful. So folks are using, and also this idea of work-life harmony, because during COVID, we saw our colleagues, rooms and kids and pets. And so it kind of, I think, lowered the guard a little bit, and it has allowed us to show up more authentically. And so I think going along with the detail, I would say storytelling. So an example would be when I go to a real estate conference, right? I will say, I'm excited to go here. And then while I'm there, one of my posts is here are tips that I suggest for those that have upcoming conferences or conventions. And these are real practical tips that I use. For example, women are always cold, right? Low in iron, like have a cardigan, right? Stuff
right,
like that. And
yeah,
so leaning into your everyday experience to leverage the content into, because do you think we have people who go to conferences and conventions on LinkedIn? Yes, right?
right,
And so how does my day-to-day business and life, how can I create content that could be useful to them? And not only is it useful to them, it's allowing them to get to know me more on a personal level, not just that. So
yeah,
storytelling is always powerful and coming from a place of contribution. So don't just post for the sake of posting. Like your post has to have some type of value. I often repost job opportunities that my network have, right? Because it does two things. It lets my other network see that there's this opportunity, and I'm also supporting and cascading the message of the person that's hiring. So there's so many things that you can post outside of real. I post about parenthood and how parenthood intersects with business, right? When I do career days at my kids' school, it's a perfect way to show up authentically as a parent,
right.
as a business person. So there's so many ways to show up authentically.
Yeah, very interesting. Now, um, you mentioned that I saw a job opening on LinkedIn, and a friend of mine had posted probably a week or so ago that he was looking for a job. So I shared that job with him that I had seen because I thought when I read the job description, it just sounded like him, and he was so appreciative that I shared that with him. Now, again, although that was just a way to kind of reach out to a part of my network and let them know I'm paying attention to them. And so kind of interesting. Now, have you used the sales navigator, or are you just really using LinkedIn more as a place to um, post and comment and or do you get a little deeper? Some people will say if they're a second connection or your first connection's a second connection, whatever. Do
Yeah.
you use that Or
Yeah.
okay.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's not just posting and commenting. It's strategic time, right? It's strategic. And so I have used the Sales Navigator before for my purposes. I did not find the paid version. So I'll tell you why. So I come from the corporate world. And so I was targeting corporations, relocation corporations, right? So I wanted to work within the relo. I understand the corporate mindset and the people and employees, and I'm a real estate professional, so it makes sense to kind of be there.
Right.
So I was looking for, relocation specialist or HR. What's funny is when I use the word relocation, guess who I was finding? Other realtors.
Okay.
And so for me, it didn't really add a ton of value. It does have value. You can DM someone directly that may be three connections away who otherwise you wouldn't be able to.
Right.
It has its benefits, but I've tried it, and for me, the free version is enough. But I always say I encourage people to try the free trial, see if you can use it differently. Just because it didn't benefit me doesn't mean it won't benefit yours. But there's a ton that you can do with a free version. So I use a ton of it on the app, actually, not on the website. So the app actually got updated, and they have. If anybody has the app and is following, when you launch the app, at the bottom there's something that says My Network.
Right.
And then under My Network, they now have two sections. So the top says Grow,
Okay.
and then the right says Catch Up. So
I
the
see
catch
that.
up, do you see it?
Yes.
Okay, so the catch up is essentially, all those notifications about, oh, Tez just got a roll of this, or it's Tez's anniversary or Tez's whatever it is. It keeps all of those things for you in that one column so you can nurture those relationships, right? So if you before you used to have to remember, what notifications or it goes away. Now
Yeah.
all under catch up, which is a great way to deepen the relationships with people you're already connected to, so you can DM them.
Right.
My only advice here is LinkedIn tries to make it easy for you to DM people, and it has canned messages of congratulations on this, on that. And that's what everybody presses. So one person ends up getting the same exact lazy message from 100 people. It just doesn't look genuine. So my challenge to you is to personalize that just a little bit, right?
Yeah. Very cool.
So that's a quick way to use it as well. So yeah, it's beyond posts and comments. It's really being intentional about the way we show up.
Okay. I love that. So I was going to show my one, I think is a very cool LinkedIn tool that I use. Yeah, hack.
Is it the
So
QR code?
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, no. So I'm going to share my screen. I've not done this on a podcast on one of my podcasts here. If you're listening to this on our podcast, you'll have to go on YouTube and check it out. But so I use a program called Text Expander.
Mhm.
And when I have actually two different I have a LinkedIn for my school, and I also have a LinkedIn detail where I actually tell a story, Tez, about how I got a speaking gig in Poland.
Mhm.
And then I have a basic LinkedIn, but with Text Expander, you can see here on the LinkedIn detail LK2, that's my
Love it.
abbreviation. Now,
Yeah.
and by the way, Text Expander is only it's like $30 a year. It's very, very reasonable. And so I'm going to now share my other screen and I'll show you how this works. Actually, let me just jump over here to and but it's oops, I would have.
This is like an equivalent of short code, I think, on
Yeah,
Apple.
it is.
Mhm.
So here we go. So now if I go to LinkedIn and I just connected to had a few folks that just this gentleman, I guess, has an auto back to me. I just connected to him. But if I wanted to just type in Andrew, and now I just type LK2 because that's the shortcut, and it
Yeah.
actually puts all of that in there,
Yeah.
and I can send that message to him. So anyway, that's
That's
my.
pretty cool. So
But
does this
I
work? on
It
your
works on your
PC
phone
only,
too.
on the phone too. Okay.
It'll work on your phone as you have to set up an additional keyboard, but it's
Mm,
called Text Expander.
okay,
And
nice.
it works on Android or the iPhone, and it'll work on your iPad. I use it for my YouTube descriptions and tags and all kinds of things. But what you said there, Tez, is why I brought that up.
Yeah.
Don't get into that pre-printed canned
Yeah.
message that they want you to do. Make it a little, and even though mine is kind of canned, it is more specific to me versus letting LinkedIn write that message for me.
No
So I
one else,
take that.
that person is not going to get another message like yours from someone else. That's the point,
Right.
right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So you can leverage
So,
technology to make it yours. It's funny you say that. I just created a short code. So I have a bunch of them on my iPhone for business, right? So,
yes.
hey, is this property available? When is the offer due? I have short codes for that. So I just added one for so New Jersey, the change, the NAR change we have coming up on the 17th, New Jersey
Right.
made it effective yesterday as of the 1st. So I now have a text saying, hey, this is Tess from, so and so company.
Exactly.
What is the, the broker comp for this? Boom. It's a quick thing.
Right. Yeah. So you can do that with your iPhone, and
Yeah.
it's, as you said, it's no cost. And I have those set up with my for my real estate school and my real estate office and Text Expander. You can have folders and little, they call them snippets,
Yeah.
but it is helpful to save time. And sometimes people will text me or call me about a property, and I can change the keyboard on my phone, use the shortcut, and it sends them a message with a link to the virtual tour or any other collateral I want to provide. So, well,
Awesome. I'm going
great.
to show you one more trick. I thought this is what you were going to show, and I think you would
Yeah.
like it too. So once you're on
Yeah.
your LinkedIn app, just go in the search. Don't type anything. Go into the search option, and
Okay.
you should see a little QR code on the right side, right?
Okay.
On your
Yes.
so if you click that, that is your personalized QR code. So
I,
people
I
don't
did
have
not
to
know
know.
that.
Yep. So
Yeah.
when you're in networking, this is perfect because you don't have to figure out how people's names are spelled. And sometimes there's too many people with the same name, no pictures, all that jazz. So this helps you get to the right person right away.
Yeah. And you could even probably do a
Save it.
screenshot of that, edit it, and incorporate it and do an email signature or,
Yep,
yeah.
it gives you an
Right.
option to save it as a photo.
Oh, interesting. Very good. Well, this has been wonderful. There was one other item I wanted to ask you about because LinkedIn is also now getting into the Reels,
Mm.
video Reels. How can we use that in as real estate professionals? I mean, I guess you mentioned the NAR lawsuit, but and I don't know much about the LinkedIn video Reels yet, but uh, anything you might have heard about or would want to suggest? Or,
Yeah, so I just wouldn't necessarily call it a Reels. It was a longer form video, but yesterday I posted a video. So the thing about any platform is they love native video, meaning record a video, upload it directly into that platform as opposed to pasting a link from YouTube or Instagram. They
right.
deprioritize that. So that's number one if you have a short form. You can talk about changes, right? You can talk about real estate changes that are happening in your state or in your country, in by NAR. I mean, there's a lot of changes, as we know, coming
Right.
by NAR. So that's a perfect time to explain a little bit about what the changes are. It positions you as a leader in your industry. Many things. If you have listings coming up, right? That could be a great way to do a short video of a teaser almost. You're not going to go through all the rooms. So often I do this at open houses, right? I do like a quick buy outside or a room, come check it
Yes.
out. um or if I am a panelist or if I'm speaking, I may do a short video like the behind the scenes of that and share. So again, it goes back to intention. So creating content is important, but I think it's important to take a step back and say, how do I want to show up? Not just for other people, but like, how do
Right.
I want to be perceived? What type of opportunities and collaborations do I want coming at me? Because that's the type of content I want to put out, right? Um,
Right.
so, I think it's important to just sit down and kind of figure out what that is for everybody watching this, then align your content based on that. And the beautiful thing with that is once you're clear on your value, everything is content. Literally everything around
Yes,
you becomes content, right? When you
it
go to an
is.
event, when you speak, everything becomes content.
Exactly. And what we're talking about for any new agents who are watching, or maybe folks who haven't really gotten involved with LinkedIn a lot, but you would like to, is we're really talking about raising the level of you being the knowledge expert in your field or your local marketplace. Because uh, Dan Kennedy talks a lot about this. He's a marketer I follow. Is there's a lot of people forget that if you can position yourself as the industry expert or the local expert, it really is a huge deal. I mean, I wrote a book and had it published years ago. All of a sudden, my credibility to be hired as a speaker went to another level.
Yeah.
And it's not that I didn't know that much more than
Right,
anyone
of
else.
course.
But I
Yeah.
did write a book,
Mhm.
but the credibility, and then same thing when I got my broker's license in 1980. I got my salesperson's license in 78. But Tez, you don't know how many people would come to me and say, we listed with you because we were impressed you had your broker's license. I mean, that was the deciding factor for them.
Yeah.
So I think when you lay all of when people are making a decision, it's not always on price. Some
Yeah.
people do, but do you want to always work with somebody who's price driven? Or are you more interested in working with someone who says, I want to work with Tez because I've watched her, followed her on LinkedIn, and I like her. I can trust her, and she's knowledgeable, and I think it's a part of the business we need to work more on, and we don't. We don't work on it because we think it's not going to pay us any dividends, but the reality is it can pay big dividends. That's
It
all I
does.
needed to say anyway.
It does. One of my favorite questions on my intake form for my clients is, how did you hear about me?
Right.
And you would be surprised. I mean, a workshop I did 2 years ago, right? Like they weren't ready then, but that's how they're coming now. And I'll leave you with this because I do these type of conversations about LinkedIn often. And now that we have buyers representation agreements that we need to sign, some of us have already been practicing that way, nothing new for us. Some of us haven't, and that may be a concern. Um, if you're working with people who are on LinkedIn, they are already used to working with professionals with agreements and contracts.
Right.
It's not going to be, in fact, it's going to be a requirement, right? They expect you to have your professional presentations and your agreement because it is a professional service that we provide. And so that's another reason why you might want to be more active and present and intentional on LinkedIn, because that is how the mindset is wired of people that show up on that platform.
Very good. Well, this has been phenomenal. Thank you so much. And I will end with this. The other thing that I've always, when I talk about LinkedIn teaching technology, and a lot of times, Tez, I will take someone on the front row and I'll say, "Do you mind if I use you as an example?" And anyone that wants to volunteer, they'll
Mhm.
give me their business card. And of course, I have the screen online, and I do a search by their name on Google. And generally, that LinkedIn profile is up there higher than their website because Google wants to send you to websites where there's lots of activity. And so it kind of brings us back to what you said earlier, keep your profile updated, because that seller or buyer who's thinking about hiring you might search for you. They may stalk you
Yep.
online, and LinkedIn may be the first place they go discover you. And if
Yep.
that doesn't have a lot of stuff going on, they may just move on to the next agent.
Yeah, and update our headshots. Realtors are
Exactly.
notorious for having our high school prom headshots, and no one.
Yeah, they are. Yeah. Well, Tez, I'll have all of the information down below how they can get a hold of you. By the way, if you're watching this, I have, and I'm sure you've noticed just by watching Tez, but she does a lot of teaching and training and does courses on LinkedIn, as well as does some great things on fair housing. She's doing some fair housing courses that I think many associations need to get in touch with her, because it's a whole different angle on how she talks about fair housing. But I would highly recommend her as a speaker for one of your events. And Tez, thank you. And of course, she's open for any referrals in the Connecticut area as
New
well.
Jersey. Yeah.
New Jersey, yeah. Connecticut was the other lady we had.
Yes.
I taught for Hawaii, and we had two folks from the mainland.
Yes.
One was from Christina, I think was her name. She was from Connecticut, and then Tez was from New Jersey area. But Tez, thank you so much. It's been
Good
a joy.
job.
Okay.
Thanks so much. All right, take care.